So July 9th, we're doing standing practice today. And just like Monday, if you were here, I think just Sarah was here, but we're going to be working with keeping our standing poses in a state of kind of aliveness rather than a static or stagnant feeling. And the way we're going to do that is really tap into sensitivity and movement of the flesh, as well as playing with lines of energy. So those are kind of our themes today. And you're going to come into your non-dominant cross-legged position. And just take some time with that, making those adjustments to roll the flesh out from underneath you, from the sitting bones, kind of diagonally back towards the outer hips and thighs. Try to cross at the mid shins. And just try to press down first to bring a sense of lightness to your torso and spine, to help your shoulders adjust above your hips. And at the same time, just inviting your groins to release any kind of gripping that's going on there. Maybe tap into the weight of the leg bones. And we always try to find a descent from the roots of the thighs to the knees. So sometimes that requires a little extra propping underneath you. You want to think about if you had some water right at the groins, you'd want it to flow down toward the knees and not pool at the creases of the hips. Once you feel like you kind of tapped into the anchoring of the lower half and the lightness of the upper half, joining the hands together in front of the heart, closing the eyes, and looking down. And even here in this Sukhasana, good space pose, holding a kind of a still pose, but keep it alive and awake with the awareness of how the skin supports the structure. There is a very easy tendency for the shoulders to pull forward and the chest to retract. See if you can just imagine and sense your inner arms winding their way out from the front armpits toward the back armpits. About the flesh of your chest, moving up behind the hands. You might even press up a little bit with the base of the thumbs. Maybe envision the flesh rolling over the shoulders and down your back. Letting the face release by releasing the flesh from the forehead all the way to the chin. Sense the flesh of the abdomen, which we can keep in a contracted or rigid state. So just using the breath to bring a sense of freedom to the flesh of the abdomen. Keeping your chest lifted, bowing toward your heart. And on your in-breath, raise your head. Let your eyes open. And welcome. So there's a wonderful reading that I'm actually going to read to you guys. And while I do so, I'm going to ask you to do your Gomukhasana arms, just so you're gently working on the flesh of the arms, chest, and shoulders. So you can just start with your right arm on top, left arm on bottom, working with your strap, and just kind of holding that first side of the pose. I won't read you this whole thing. It's a 3-page article that was in Yoga Journal by kind of around this idea of the intelligence of the flesh body. The purpose or goal of asana is to align and harmonize the physical body and all the layers, sheaths of the subtle, emotional, mental, and spiritual body. This is integration. But how does one align these layers and experience integration? How does one find such profound transformation in what from the outside may look simply like stretching or twisting the body into unusual positions? It begins with awareness. We think of intelligence and perception as taking place exclusively in our brains. But yoga teaches us that awareness and intelligence must permeate the body. Each part of the body literally has to be engulfed by this intelligence. We must create a marriage between the awareness of the body and that of the mind. Moderns use their bodies so little they lose sensitivity of this bodily awareness. They move from the bed to the desk to the car to the couch to the bed, but there's no awareness of their movement, no intelligence, there's no action. Action is movement with intelligence. The world is filled with movement. What the world needs is more conscious movement, more action. So you can switch to the other side. There's a little bit more here I want to get into about the skin, which is what we're focusing on today. So switch to your right arm side, being the top arm in Gomukhasana. How do we develop this intelligence in the body? How do we learn to turn our movement into action? Asana can begin to teach us. We develop such an intense sensitivity that each pore of the skin acts as an inner eye. We become sensitive to the interface between skin and flesh. In this way, our awareness is diffused throughout the periphery of our body and is able to sense whether in a particular asana our body is in alignment. We can adjust and balance the body gently from within with the help of these eyes. This is different from seeing with our normal two eyes. Instead, we are sensing the position of our body. I'm going to save the rest for a little bit later. Take another couple breaths in the right-sided Gomukhasana. Good. Bring that elbow over the shoulder, Sylvia, a little more if you can. And go ahead and release the arms. Just extend the arms out, palms forward, and just gently rotate the pinkies up, the palms down. And we're going to start from here in child's pose with the arms extending forward. So do your best to feel the dynamic nature of the arms here, which is the same arms, and the intelligence of the arms is the same in downward facing dog. So you're going to press your thumbs and index fingers down, which helps your inner wrist roll down. But at the same time, attempt to roll the inner elbows up and lift the inner upper arms up. We'll move to each side in this pose today, just get the spine a little bit more mobilized. So you're going to move to your right. Make sure to come up high enough that you're able to really get to your first edge. So you're probably going to need to be a little bit on top of your right thigh. Your head will probably not reach the floor anymore if you're on top of the thigh, so don't worry about the head resting. But try to go back to those arms. Maybe rolling weight back into the thumbs and index without the upper arms following. So you have to kind of isolate the upper arms. Meanwhile, bringing awareness to your left toenails, your left side body, your breath. Inhaling slowly, bring it back through the center and continue on to the left side. Again, finding that first edge. Bringing some attention back to your right toes where kind of you're anchoring all this extension in your upper body from. Making sure the right hip is part of that foundation. It's not following that kind of seductive pulling forward momentum of the arms and torso. And go back to those dynamic arms. And now you're going to just move your way back to center. And we'll come on to our hands and knees. And we'll prepare for downward dog. We're going to focus on the arms kind of in the same effortful state. And just bring your wrist slightly forward of the shoulder line. I'm going to open the dog up a little bit more today. Make sure your middle fingers are forward. The forefingers are fully extended away from each other, the thumbs not their full extent. And then really roll down into your inner index and I didn't mean to say inner index, your index and thumbs, training those wrists to kind of sit down rather than lift, but then roll your inner elbows forward. And then take the toes under and exhale, extend the legs. So the primary parts of the body you're going to focus on with moving the flesh and tapping into the sensitivity of the skin is going to be with the arm actions, the inner thigh actions, and the rotation of the torso today. And those are the primary ones in general. So for this downward dog, just keeping attention on the dynamic action of the arms. We have complementing rotations in the upper and lower arms. Continue to bring equal weight to the index and thumbs. We do tend to kind of sit down more firmly on the pinkies, but then attempt to roll those inner elbows forward. Good. Now go ahead and sit down with the knees. Take a rest here. If your arms are tired, you might flip your palms over. You might take a child's pose and then take your fingertips onto your spine. It's just if your arms need a little bit more relief than just arms forward. And with your fingertips on your spine, you might just kind of gently send the elbows toward the top of your mat. This can help relieve the shoulders, the upper back, and the triceps, because we are going to do one more downward dog with a different focus. You just want to feel relieved and refreshed. We'll go ahead and come back to your table pose. This version of dog, we're going to focus on the action of the thighs, inner thighs, and so it will require a block. And if you have a 4-inch block as opposed to a 3-inch block, those are a little bit wider than we need, but it won't be a big deal. It just might feel a little more cumbersome. So if you do have an option, take your thinner blocks between your thighs. And what we're going to do is attempt to send that block just slightly farther back so that we kind of feel the contact of touch with the block. We don't just have to use our imaginations. We have the reference of touch, which is always helpful to imprint these actions on the body. So again, come back to your arms that aren't completely vertical. They're slightly forward of the shoulder line. Make sure your hands are in good position. And you're doing the same actions with the arms. We're going to bring our attention now to the thighs. So on an exhale, extend your legs. And see if you can recruit the inner thigh muscles to help you just think about the block sliding back. You might not actually feel it, but you're trying to send the block back rather than forward. And anytime you work with wise actions, there is sometimes a tendency to overdo things. So just to the point where we're neutralizing the opposite action. We don't want our thighs to, in other words, splay forward or rotate out. So don't overdo it so that you're knock-kneed, just to the point of equalizing. And of course, we're getting a great leg stretch here, which will be helpful for our standing work. So just giving a moment to extend the legs more completely, resisting the sitting bones away from the heels away from the sitting bones. And then if you're able to, you can come up to standing with that block between your thighs, and you can remove it as soon as you're up. If you need to come up another way, that's fine. And then bring yourself upright. So we want to make sure the legs are really warm for the standing practice so that we can kind of get a more sensation of depth in the poses. So we're going to do an elevated Uttanasana. So the front feet are going to have some elevation. So you can use a blanket. You can always improvise and roll your mat, part of your mat, so that we don't always have a million props at our sides. So find a way to elevate the toes, the ball mounds. The arches and heels, the arches should be free and clear, and the heels should be anchored into the floor. And right away, we feel kind of like we have to sit back on our heels. So just challenge that and stay weighted in your front feet, even though you're elevated. We're still trying to balance the feet, even though we're at an angle. Good. We'll go ahead and raise the arms. We don't need blocks. We'll just touch down either to the floor, the shins, or the thighs, whatever you need, whatever is accessible. And then tilting the pelvic bowl forward, extending forward, and taking your hands where they go. So it might be the floor, might be flat palms to shins, might be hands to thighs. Take a moment to encourage the weight to balance. Again, you might have gotten back into the heels, which throws off your alignment. We want our hips right over our heels. You might need your knees to be somewhat bent, but eventually we're working toward that straight, full extended leg. And you're in your full Uttanasana. So if you're in half Uttanasana still, feel free to release the weight of the head. If your hands are on the floor, you can start to work them toward the outer feet. Let's take 5 deep breaths here. Maybe you're feeling this more in the calf muscles today, more in the hamstrings. Just kind of notice where you're feeling more sensation. Take another exhalation here. And then go ahead and inhale. You might need to bend your knees. You can bring your hands to your hips and come up. And you can put whatever you were propping your feet with, just put it aside. Joining your legs and feet and just coming into mountain pose. Just imagine the whole back body against the wall, including the back of the head. See if you can envision the front thighs. And if you drew a line down the front thighs, those lines will be parallel. This requires some sensitivity to the flesh of the thighs. It depends on your anatomy really, but some of us have thighs that kind of splay out, and some of us have thighs that more internally rotate. We're just trying to bring equalization to the thighs. That's why the visual image of 2 parallel lines running down the front thighs can be useful to kind of know which direction you need to fine tune your own little distortions with rotation. Good. Go ahead and blink the eyes open. Release your legs. Shake out the arms if you need. We're going to come into side angle pose, which there's a few elements of rotation of flesh and movement of flesh. So one is the torso and one is really with the top arm. So we're going to use a block. It's going to be to the front right of the mat. If you're feeling a little bit limited with mobility today, you can always replace the block with the seat of a chair because it's higher usually. And then feel free to jump out, bringing your hands chest level, spreading the feet without popping up in the sky too high. And then take your hands onto your hips and we'll set up the legs first here. So rotating the right toes out, left toes slightly in. Already you have to steer the flesh of the trunk from the right to the left to get your shoulders and hips to align. But then notice how the knee for most of us turns in when we adjust the torso. So now rotate the flesh of your right inner thigh from the inner thigh to the outer thigh. And on Monday, we did a lot of work with a strap to manually feel this thigh rotation. So if you're interested in that, you can request that class. So we're going to come into Warrior 2 just to get into side angle, stretching the arms wide, exhaling, attempting to create a square shape with your right leg. So that might mean you have to spread the distance between the feet so that you can really take the knee above the ankle, not beyond the ankle. On an in breath, just lengthen the torso. On the out breath, extending to the right. You're going to plant your hand inside the right leg. This is going to help us get some leverage to roll the flesh of the torso from right to left. So when we pin the arm against the leg, we have nice contact there. We can really leverage this. You can put your top arm on your hip for now. We'll just tap into that rotation of the torso first. So sometimes it's helpful to feel the kind of the passive action in the body. So what does happen here is we tend to curl toward the floor. What we're trying to equalize is that momentum. So you're gently going to roll the chest away from the floor. Think about moving the flesh of the hip line all the way to the armpit line, around, 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 over to the left. Okay, now that you have that, we're going to add the motion of the flesh of the top arm. And I'm going to have you take your top arm. This is a little awkward, a little weird. But you're going to take your top arm next to your so it's your deltoid, kind of right next to your ear. So your palm is face up, which teaches the upper arm the action we want it in, okay? So once your palm is face up and you're really working well with that top arm, see if you can isolate that top arm and just move from the elbows to the fingertips. So it's as if that inner elbow is still trying to curl toward the ceiling. Okay, so think about those little eyeballs and all the cells of your body. Okay, keeping the awareness on the rotation of the trunk, keeping the awareness on the rotation of the upper left arm, the inner elbow turning skyward as you keep the palm down. Good work. So inhale, sweeping back through warrior one and coming out of it. So if you feel a little wobbly, feel free to adjust your propped arm, now it's going to be your left side, with the chair seat. So that stability is always primary. It's the kind of the base of the triangle. You need stability before you can refine the pose at all. Otherwise, we're just kind of in a frozen mode trying not to fall. So make sure you're always stable. You can keep your wide stance. Take your knee above your ankle. Remember, the block will be to the inner foot or the chair. Good. And then already turning the torso from left to right. Notice how the knee pulls in when we do that. So then correcting, bringing that left inner thigh over the top thigh and down to the outer thigh. Good. Stretch the arms nice and wide. Extending to the left. And then placing your left hand in line with the shoulder on the chair seat on the block. You're pinning the arm and leg together. And you're attempting, so you can keep your right hand on your hip for this piece, attempting to roll the flesh of the torso from left to right. Now we're going to take that top arm, bring the deltoid, which is kind of the shoulder muscle, right next to the ear. Palm is up. So it would be biceps if palm was down. Right now we're rotating the arm to get the top arm really in that wise action. Isolate that and rotate elbow to fingertips. See if you can keep your armpit more open, your inner elbow turning toward the ceiling. Don't forget the torso as well. So you're kind of coordinating those two strong rotations here to keep this pose in good balance, good harmony. Good. And now inhale, lifting yourself out of it. Turn your toes forward and jumper step back in. All right. We'll drop into mountain pose, Tadasana, just for about a half a minute. So turning the dial as far down as you can, that effort dial, as you maintain the steadiness, the firmness of the pose, the tapas, the discipline, the action. Okay. More with torso rotation. And this is the one I want everybody to have the chair seat for, because today is not about perfecting balance. I want you to feel utmost support with revolving triangle. So we're going to work with the chair seat. You're going to face your chair seat, have your right foot forward, left foot stacked, and just kind of set yourself up like you're in Ardha Parshvottanasana. So you're in that concave or flat lumbar position, preparatory position for this forward bend, you know. So on Monday, we talked about how the thighs, I'll just do a gentle reminder here. The thighs have oppositional actions here. So we want our right inner thigh to roll back. We want our left outer hip to roll forward. You're going to kind of keep some attention on those two things first, just to get the legs really stable underneath you, get the legs equalized. Left outer hip rolling forward, and the right inner thigh rolling back. Now take your left hand and just put it to the center of the chair, so it's kind of crossing into the midline of the body. And then take your right hand onto your right hip. Feeling first just kind of the lazy side of the pose, where we're just kind of pointing our chest to the floor. And then pressing into your left hand, you're going to start to revolve the torso to face off to the right. Good, so you're moving that left side body around, right side body back. We're going to keep our hand on our hip today and just work with the flesh, the sheath, the outermost sheath of your torso, supporting the action of rotation of kind of the skeleton underneath. Meanwhile, you can think about your left inner arm rotating out, that inner elbow trying to shine to the right. Keep squeezing your hips together. Keep sending right inner thigh back, left outer thigh forward. Nice. And go ahead and gently lengthen out of the twist. So use an in-breath. Replace your hands to either side of the chair and just switch your feet out. So left foot is coming underneath the chair and right foot is stepping back. And just make sure your heels are not on the same line. You have more width between the feet. Starting in the Ardha Parshvottanasana position. Taking a moment to adjust for the asymmetry of the legs here. Tapping into the movement of the left inner thigh rolling back, the right outer hip rolling forward. And then you'll take your right hand to the center of the chair. Eventually in this pose, that hand is to the outer left foot on the floor. So we have a ways to go. We're moving in that general direction. Lift your left hand onto your hip. Hug the hips together so the inner thighs move toward each other. And then feel the flesh, sense the flesh, or imagine, if you can't feel or sense, the flesh of the trunk moving from right to left. Keep turning right inner elbow forward, but remember that the right inner wrist does not follow. Right inner wrist moves back. Just a couple more breaths. Good. And gently turn back toward your chair. Place your hands, step your feet together, and bring yourself up. Okay. You can turn your chair around if your balance is a little bit what should I say, compromised today. Otherwise, we're going to work freely. No props really, other than eventually a strap. We're going to be working with Warrior 3 with a few different concepts. We'll be repeating it a few times. So freestanding or the chair, the high part of the chair right in front of you, even if you don't start with it, just knowing it's there sometimes is helpful, or dropping your hands occasionally as you need to steady yourself can be helpful. But we're going to step down on the right foot. Take your left toes back. Keep your left big toe on the floor. And then try to fully extend your left leg. Keep your hip points like headlights so they're even. Don't let your left foot roll that left hip back. Keep your left hip forward. And then you're going to stretch your arms out. Yep. So that your palms turn out as much as they can. And we're really gonna like over exaggerate the action of the upper arm here so that it shows up when we bring the arms forward eventually. So on an exhale, step into your right foot fully and do what you can to lift the left leg. Now we're getting into lines of energy a little bit too, because you're not gonna feel as steady if you don't give your left leg that really purposeful extension through the bottom of the foot. Reach out through the sole of the foot, reach out through your fingertips, and keep the arms like this. So you're really training the upper arms to the rotation that we want them in when the arms eventually come forward. If you're getting tired, that's a good sign. This is a lot of effort. Come out of it, shake it out. This isn't your fullest, deepest expression of Warrior 3. So we're not going into capital letter T full expression today for these teachings, just because you need to conserve your energy to kind of funnel it into these strong lines of energy and rotation of the flesh. So don't try to do the fullest Warrior 3 that you know you can do. Back off a little bit. Okay, so now we're back into the left foot. Right big toe steps back. Fully extend the leg. Make sure right hip didn't rotate back. Your hips are against an imaginary plane of glass. Take your arms back and turn your palms out, which trains the upper arms to rotate from the inner armpit around to the back of the armpit. Chest is lifted and spread. On an exhale, hold that right foot just away from the floor a little bit. Reach out through the sole of the foot. Keep extending through fingertips. Imagine someone's grabbing your right ankle and they're just gently pulling, keeping that leg long, keeping the weight from dangling off the lower back, which we don't want. And then inhale to step up and just shake it out. And right where you are, spontaneously drop into mountain pose. And just feel the breath. Feel the energy in the body. Maybe there's some fatigue. And if your breath is raggedy, you stay as long as you need to until the breath is smooth and even. And then we'll move along. If you're still waiting there, that's fine too. You can catch up. So again, with Warrior 3, but just a different arm position. Hopefully we get some of that residual wise action kind of lingering here. So back to the right foot, back to the left big toe stepping back. You're going to start right now like you're holding a tray. So your arms are forward, your palms are up. So remember downward dog. This is kind of training the upper arm to do its thing before we get the lower arm going. On an exhale, if you're moving that tray forward, you're going to lift that left leg, winding the pinkies up, the thumbs down, and rooting the shoulders back, which provides more openness across the chest. So anchor your long arm bones into your shoulders. Extend through your fingernails, extend through the sole of the foot. And now without disturbing it, rotate elbows to fingertips down, still shining inner elbows up. Good. Inhale, come up, release your arms. You might shake the limbs out. Good. And now try the other side. The left foot is our standing leg. Step the right big toe back. Hold that tray again. If you can see your shoulders, you have to really pull the long arm bones back, move the shoulders back, bring the chest forward. Lift your inner elbows, lift your pinkies. On an exhale, come into a lifted right leg. Even though we're not talking about inner thighs so much here, think about lifting the inner right thigh to keep the toes pointing down. And now rotate elbows to fingertips, keeping your inner elbows up, your inner upper arms rolling up, your chest forward. Inhale, take the arms up, the leg down, and exhale, release your arms. And again, you're back in mountain pose. Turn that dial way down to a simmer. Just what is needed to hold you here steady. Soften the parts of your body that don't need to be in an effort state. Okay. So the next one is half moon. Is it half moon? It is half moon. I always have to check myself. With a strap. So this is going to reinforce the lines of energy that so support us in this pose. Because we're going to be taking the right side first, you're going to make a little loop with your strap. It's a passable loop. It's not fixed. And you're going to be placing it to your left foot. And for our intents and purposes today, have it just behind the ball mounds. We're going to use the chair seats because again, we're going to try to take as much support as we can when we're playing with single standing leg poses and straps, plus straps. That's a lot. So let's give ourselves more support with the chair seat. So oftentimes with these aerial limbs in this pose, we just have to imagine where they are in space. We also have to imagine those energy streams through the foot, through the top arm. This pose with the strap in hand is going to give us that feedback because we'll have the reference of touch. So it'll be hopefully more empowered feeling. We're going to start with the right foot under the chair. It's kind of it stems from triangle pose. So you can just kind of take a general triangle pose shape here. You're going to have your hand on the chair seat. You do need to start with a little bend in your right knee because when you bring the leg up, that leg straightens. So start with a little bend in your right knee, your hand anchored on the chair seat. I recommend wrapping your hand once. You can still slide the strap and find the appropriate kind of distance hand to foot once you get up into the pose, but wrapping the strap does kind of conserve a little bit of that gripping energy. And on an exhale, just bring your leg up. And you have your hand up in the sky now, your arm above the bottom arm. You're resisting the foot into the strap, and you're creating this really nice dynamic relationship between your arm and your foot. Reach out through the sole of the left foot. Keep extending up with the top arm. And hopefully this gives you some sense that your aerial limbs are just as stabilizing as your grounded limbs. Good. Now you can either come down back through triangle, or you might find another way down, kind of pointing yourself with the chair. It's really what feels safe and best in your body. And then just step out of that little strap loop and walk yourself back until you're in a standing chair version of downward dog, which brings nice symmetry back to the body after an asymmetrical pose. Lengthening the hips away from the shoulders, sinking the shoulder blades into the front body, scooping the rib cage toward the back, front to back, so that you don't collapse or explode into your front body. And drawing the hips back. And then go ahead and come forward. You don't have to move your chair, but you can. I'm going to, so I can keep facing you guys. And this time we'll be putting the foot inside the right foot inside the loop, close to the ball mounds. So you notice on the first side, we're not taking a lot of time to discuss getting into this pose. So if you want to just kind of test it out and see where you need to be to get there, we're not going to be so much focused on getting into this pose today. It's just kind of bring yourself up into Ardha Chandrasana, and then we'll work from there. So again, you might wrap the hand, you might not. What we're trying to do is get that good amount of tension on the strap so that we have the arm, right arm on top of left, and we have the left leg, we have the right leg extended level with the floor. We have that right angle relationship between our legs. Reach out through the inner foot, the blade edge of the inner foot. Roll your right inner thigh back to the wall behind you. Keep nice extension happening in your aerial leg. So there's a clean line of energy. It's not getting confused with a bent knee. It's not getting caught with a bent knee. Stream it out through the sole of the foot. Beautiful. And then go ahead and help yourself down. You might turn to face the chair. You might step back into triangle. It's really about safety and what feels right in your body. And you can slide out of that strap. You can put it aside. You're going to walk yourself back to that standing chair version of downward dog. As you roll your inner wrist down, roll your inner upper arms up. Roll both of your inner thighs back. And keep a little bit of a corseting action on the front rib cage. Good. Now go ahead and bring yourself forward. Okay, the last standing pose we're going to do is, once again, we are coming back to warrior three. This is very similar to what we just did in balancing half moon. So again, working with lines of energy in the strap to reinforce the streaming lines of energy that usually we just have with our imagination. So we're going to be strapping the bottom of the left foot. And before we go into it, I'll just show you the general shape. So what you'll begin kind of starting with is very similar to how we started the previous warrior three, with the left big toe back, but now the arms are going to be overhead. And I kind of have my fists stacked, but they're ready to move, they're ready to slide. I already have good tension between my, on my belt. So I have good tension, it's not slackened at all. Remember to pull that left hip point forward. And then you're going to exhale and extend the leg from the floor. Reach up through the arms as well, keep your chest forward. Remember to lift the inner edge of the left foot up. It does tend to roll down, and that will help you lift your left inner thigh up. So I find this feels a lot more secure in my body than when I'm doing it freestanding without the support of the strap. And then on an in-breath, you'll just bring your foot down, your arms back up, and release the arm. So the reason I had you do Gomukhasana earlier was specifically for this pose, because when you're holding that strap overhead, the elbows like to go wide, which shortens the shoulder girdle. So on this next one, just do your best to squeeze the elbows closer together like you would in the top arm Gomukhasana. And that will help you keep good integrity in the chest and shoulders. Okay. Right foot gets the little loop. You're going to start planting your left foot on the floor. Take your right big toe back. Stack your arms. Stack your fists. And already you should have your elbows as best you can above the shoulders. If they need to be a little wider, that's okay, but we're working inward. We're not letting the elbows flap out, which they like to do. So you're clamping a little bit, even if you're still wider than your shoulders. Reach out through the inner edge of that right foot. On an exhale, extend the leg up. Remember, this isn't your fullest, deepest warrior three. We're really just teaching the flesh of the body how to move to support that one day, someday capital letter T shape. Keep reaching out through the big toe ball mound and the inner right heel. And lift that inner right thigh. On an in-breath, lift yourself up and out of it. Go ahead and release. Moving on. That was it for the standing work. We are coming into Anatasana just briefly, which is a side lying position with the strap. And I do recommend a little bit extra padding under your hip. So what I do is I just put my thin blanket down in the center of my mat. And we'll start lying down on the right hip side, which means we're going to put the little loop that we were just working with on the left foot. So this is another pose that can feel pretty wobbly, side lying balancing pose. But I do find the strap, which reinforces the lines of energy, helps stabilize some of that wobble. So once your right hip is resting on your blanket, you can just come down. And we're just going to prep the pose with your palm down, right palm down. Crawl your hand as far away from your shoulder as you can, which helps seal the gap between your armpit and the floor. It's not going to be perfect for most of us. There'll still be a gap, there'll still be some space, but do your best to crawl the fingertips away to close that gap. Then you're going to turn your palm up and prop your head. Some people find this uncomfortable with the wrist or whatever, so you might do a fist, or you might modify somehow to make it work for you. We are trying to create a single line from the elbow all the way out through the bottom leg foot. If you're already wobbly or you anticipate you're going to have some struggles, you can bend your bottom leg knee to modify. So if you have a stick straight leg and you're already tipping and falling over, bend the bottom leg knee and kind of make more of an angle there, and you'll have more stability. Okay, we're going to take that top leg up. Wrap your hand once and try to find your straight leg. Keep reaching out through right elbow. That is a big piece of stabilization here. If you do have your right leg straight, be on the outer edge of the right foot and really press the inner edge to align with the outer edge. So you don't want to be on the top of the foot. And then you're going to slowly steer the leg back, which helps you roll the buttock forward, which helps you rotate the thigh. Steer the leg slightly back. What we don't want to do is be on our right butt cheek. We want to be on our right hip point. Keep extending through right elbow. Good. Anatasana, Vishnu's couch pose. Right, and then take that into tree pose. So you're going to bend the knee. You can keep your strap where it is. You might wrap your hand a few times to help you place the foot to the inner thigh, or maybe you have to kind of modify and go down to the knee. Oh, sorry, below the knee. And then just gently press your left knee back, which helps you roll that left buttock forward. Keep reaching out through that right elbow. Feel the flesh of that outer arm and the armpit area, gently stealing toward the floor. Nice work. Go ahead and soften out of the pose. We're going to switch to the other side. So you can just do a little bit of a 180 on your mat. So you have your head in the other direction. And you can place the strap on the right foot, but again, we're just going to leave it alone for a minute as we prepare the arm, getting as much stabilization out of it as we can. So once you have the foot looped up, then you're going to just put yourself in that single line from your foot all the way to your left elbow. Crawl your fingertips across the floor as far away from your body as you can. Just try to move that outer upper arm down to the floor. Think about the flesh there, really trying to magnetize it to the floor. Then rotate your palm up and prop your head. Reach out through the inner left foot. And then you're going to start to bend right knee and take the leg up. Find your straight leg. Again, you can bend your bottom leg knee if you need a little more balance here. And you're just gently, slightly steering the leg back so that you can roll the buttock forward and keep yourself over your hip rather than kind of falling onto your left butt cheek. Okay, when our leg moves away from midline, think about your right inner thigh moving toward or up. Always kind of confusing how we say these things, these actions. Right inner thigh lifts rather than rolls back. So the opposite of what we did with that block between our thighs. Now we're bringing the inner thigh up over the top thigh and around to the other side. Good. Now keep as much of this stable as you can. Bend the knee and take the foot onto the inner left leg somewhere. Not over the knee though. It's never a good idea for the knee. Either above or below. And then press that right knee back. Keep working with your bottom leg. Keep reaching out through the inner left foot. Keep reaching out through your left elbow and feeling the flesh of that armpit area moving into the floor. Good. And then go ahead and release. Last but not least, I'm going to have you guys come into a version of bound ankle pose, which will give you a lot of kind of relief in the legs, openness in the front body, and not so effortful. So feel free to have a head support. And we are going to work with an open strap, so you can kind of just open it back up from that passable loop. If your hips are tight, you're going to want to fill the gaps kind of right outside the thighs. You'll put some blankets or even blocks, not on your blankets. Just put something there to cradle the legs so your legs can truly surrender. But instead of binding the legs today, we're going to take the strap kind of over the ankles here. And then what you're going to do is run it to the outer thighs, and I'm wrapping my hands, and I'm bringing my hands as close to the ankles as I can. Okay, so you're wrapping your hands. I'm rotating my arms so that my shoulders sit down, my inner elbows and palms are face up. My feet are as close as they can be. And sometimes this pose really works out nicely because your hands where they are create those supports for your hips that you maybe don't need to grab a bunch of props because your hands are there supporting. So you're containing the legs with the strap over the front ankles. You're working your thumbs down, your pinkies up to keep the outer upper arm flesh rolling down. You might have some hyperextension in your back, so just taking your pelvic tilt, make sure to tip the pelvis back so it's the tailbone action moving into the body toward the ceiling. And I'm going to just continue where I left off here with just a few more notes from this wonderful article. When you stand in warrior pose with arms extended, you can see the fingers of your hand in front of you, but you can also feel them. You can sense their position and their extension right to the tips of your fingers. You can also sense the placement of your back leg and tell whether it is straight or not without looking back or into a mirror. You must observe and correct the body position with the help of the trillions of eyes that you have in the form of cells. This is how you bring awareness to your body and fuse the intelligence of brain and brawn. This intelligence should exist everywhere in your body and throughout the asana. The moment you lose the feeling in the skin, the asana becomes dull and the flow or current of the intelligence is lost. The skin provides our outermost layer of intelligence. The challenge from the skin should tap into the self. Just a little bit more here. While doing the postures, your mind should be in an interior conscious state, which does not mean sleep. It means silence, emptiness, and space, which can then be filled with an acute awareness of the sensations given by the posture. You watch yourself from inside. It is a full silence. Maintain a detached attitude towards the body, and at the same time, do not neglect any part of the body or show haste. But remain alert while doing the asana. Rushing saps the strength whether you are in Delhi or New York. Do things rhythmically and with a calm mind. So this is excerpted from Light on Life. It's a really wonderful book by B.K.S. Iyengar, The Yoga Journey to Wholeness, Inner Peace, and Ultimate Freedom. Really wonderful article. And I loved it because it spoke about the awareness of how our flesh is really part of this whole experience in our asana. So go ahead and release your Baddha Konasana and just take a moment to bring your knees together and your feet apart. Just countering that pose for a couple breaths. And then once you have done so, go ahead and take any final movements you need. You might windshield wiper your knees. You might do a reclining child's pose. You might do a little bit of a supine twist. Just intuitively move to release anything else that needs to move before final resting pose. And when you feel ready, starting to move into Shavasana, taking time to really place your body with care, extending the limbs from the trunk, the skull from the trunk, the buttocks from the trunk. Lengthen the heels away from the buttocks. And now all of these directions, these efforts, these contractions, we're letting them go. Once you've placed your body, let go of all effort. Just stepping into the witness seat. Observing the breath. And you'll notice it takes some time for the body to completely let go. Just continue sending gentle reminders throughout the body, especially in your head where all the sense organs, most of the sense organs reside. You can start to pull away from the outer world. This intelligence we begin kind of cultivating at the outermost sheath, the skin, starting to seep inwards. Just taking a few breaths that are deeper, letting your exhalations flow out a bit longer. Finding your way back to easy breathing. You might begin to rock the head or squeeze the hands and fists. and squeeze the toes. You might start to rotate your wrists and your ankles. And then moving into the knees and elbow joints, starting to bend. Holding your hands onto your torso somewhere. And then easing yourself to one side of your body. Just pausing on your side. Taking your hands and pressing down into the floor. Bring yourself to seated. Just coming full circle, bringing the hands again to the heart. Sensing how the arms support the position, the action of the flesh. Scrubbing up gently on the breastbone to assist the chest to roll up over the shoulders, down the back. Softening the belly. Take a deep breath in through the nose. And let it go. The place within me that I know to be divine, honor that place within each of you. Namaste. Right. All right. Well, thank you for being here. Happy Friday. And I look forward to seeing you guys again soon.